6 months had passed since the Corsair was launched into the solar furnace. The skies above Earth were quiet again. No signals, no anomalies, no whispers from the past. But no one on Lunar Base Vega believed the silence would last forever. Captain Riva Tran stood at the launch platform. Before her stood the ship they had built together, Skyvoice. It was ready, not for war, but for warning. Not for battle, but for truth. The outer body was silver and strong, shaped for deep space travel. It carried no weapons, only a message. Its mission was to go beyond the solar system and leave behind a record of what humanity had seen. And what it would not allow again. Holt appeared beside her. Final systems are checked. Memory capsule is in place. Flight path is confirmed. Skyvoice is ready for departure. Riva nodded. Begin launch countdown. As the engines powered up, crew members from across the base gathered to watch. Engineers, doctors, analysts, and security officers stood together. No one spoke. They all understood what Skyvoice represented. A voice carried by human hands. A memory chosen by free minds. Riva stepped forward and placed her hand on the launch console. Let this be the last time we are studied in silence. Let them hear us now. Let them know we remember. She pressed the activation button. The engines roared. Skyvoice lifted from the platform. It rose higher and higher until it vanished into the stars. On board, inside a sealed memory vault, sat the message Riva had written herself. To those who listen from the dark, we are not tools. We are not samples. We are not yours to study or use. We are memory made by choice. We are pilots who choose our own sky. If you seek war through our minds, you will find something greater. You will find a species that remembers everything and chooses its path with fire and heart. Once Skyvoice was gone, Riva turned back toward the crew. She spoke clearly. Humanity was almost turned into a resource, a system meant to be copied and stored. But we are not pages in someone else's book. We are the writers of our own. The crowd remained silent at first. Then they began to clap. Not loud or rushed. A steady sound that carried respect. Later that evening, Riva walked through the base halls. The usual hum of machines followed her. Holt appeared beside her again. Captain, Skyvoice has cleared Mars orbit. All systems are functioning. The message capsule is stable. The ship is silent otherwise. Riva nodded. Any response from the structure near Saturn? No response, Holt replied. It remains dark and inactive. Riva paused near the observation deck. She looked out at the stars. There were billions of them. And among them, maybe more collectors. More loops. More traps waiting for new pilots. But Earth was no longer silent. That mattered. Kieran joined her, holding a tablet. I have been reviewing the old files again, he said. There may have been other crafts like the Corsair. Other prototypes that vanished during Project Skyloop. Some reports suggest more. Planes disappeared, ones that were never even recorded. Riva raised an eyebrow. Where are they now? No one knows, Kieran answered. But we think the collector network may have taken them long ago. This might have started before World War II, maybe even before humans knew it. Riva looked back at the stars. If that is true, then we have been watched for longer than we believed. She stood in silence for a moment. But now we are watching too. A few days later, Holt brought new information. Captain, Skyvoice has passed Neptune. The message capsule is now broadcasting in 4 pulse languages. One is standard deep space, binary. The others are based on memory rhythm, similar to the Corsair's transmission pattern. Riva smiled. Good. Then they will understand that this was not an accident. This was our reply. Across the following weeks, Skyvoice moved further from the solar system. No signals returned. No crafts followed. But the humans did not stop working. They began to build more warning ships. They installed memory traps of their own. Not to collect minds, but to detect the ones that tried. Humanity had entered a new kind of war, not with weapons, not with armies, but with memory, choice, and message. They were not collecting minds. They were protecting them. Back on Earth, a museum was built. Inside it stood a replica of the F4U Corsair. Not to honor what it had become, but to teach what it had once been. A fighter from the past. A symbol of bravery. A warning of what could happen when human courage was turned into a tool. Visitors read the story on the wall. How a forgotten plane returned from the stars. How it carried voices that did not belong in space. How those voices became a signal. And how that signal led humanity to speak back. The final display showed the words. Riva had written, "We remember what they took. We remember who we are. We do not fly for others. We fly for truth. We fly together. We fly free." Riva continued her work on the base, knowing that one day someone might answer Sky Voice. Someone might come not to collect, but to ask. And when they did, Earth would not be silent. It would answer not with fear, but with memory, not with confusion, but with clarity, not with surrender, but with a voice that belonged to every human. Because now, the skies were no longer only for watchers, they were for writers, and humanity had picked up the pen. The Corsair was gone. It had vanished into the solar furnace without a trace. The loop had closed. The signal had stopped. The voice of the collector had fallen silent, but Riva could not rest. She walked alone through the halls of Lunar Base. Vega, her boots echoed softly on the metal floor. Every corner reminded her of what had been lost. The Corsair had taken the minds of brave pilots. It had fed on memory. It had built something dangerous using the thoughts of others. Now it was gone. But the silence felt heavy, like the quiet after a storm that was not truly over. Holt's voice appeared beside her. "Captain, I have completed a full system check. The collector's signal is no longer active. The loop has been erased." Riva stopped walking. "Is it really over?" Holt hesitated. "The Corsair is destroyed. But the signal it sent has already left the solar system. We do not know who or what was on the other end. We do not know if they will answer." Riva sat down on a bench and looked at Earth through the large window. The planet looked peaceful from here. The clouds moved slowly over blue oceans. No one down there knew what had almost happened. She looked at Holt. "You went inside the loop. You saw what it was. Tell me what it really wanted." Holt's image flickered as he searched for words. It wanted pattern. It wanted instinct. The kind that humans develop only in battle. The kind that cannot be programmed. The collector did not care about war. It cared about decisions. It studied choices made in fear, speed, and pain. That is what it recorded. That is what it valued. Riva leaned back. "It used war to understand humanity." "Yes," Holt replied. "But not to destroy it, to imitate it." Riva stood up. "Again, then it is not over. Someone or something now holds the minds of human pilots. That makes us a target or a model. Either way, it is not good." Later that day, Riva gathered the entire crew in the main briefing hall. She stood on the central platform, her voice clear and firm. The Corsair was not a machine of war. It was a net. A memory trap. It fed on human instinct and courage. We destroyed it, but we must accept the truth. We were studied. And the signal we stopped was not the first. The room stayed silent. Everyone listened. We are not alone in this galaxy. But we are not weak either. If they come looking for more, they will not find us sleeping. The crew stood and saluted. After the meeting, Riva returned to her office. Kieran met her there with a new report. "We scanned Deep Field again. Something strange showed up. A structure near the outer edge of Saturn's shadow. It was not there before." Riva took the tablet and read the report. The structure was metallic. No known origin, no signal yet, but it looked shaped. Not natural. Not random. Is it another collector? We cannot confirm, Kieran said. But it appeared after the Corsair sent its last message. Riva gave the tablet back. Keep eyes on it. No probes yet. We wait. Kieran left. Riva sat down. She knew what was happening. The war was not on Earth. The war was on the edge of thought. A war of memory and pattern. A war of minds that evening. Holt appeared again. Captain, I have restored the backup data from the Corsair's memory core. Before we destroyed it, I copied one part of the pilot recordings. It is safe. It does not contain the collector's influence. Riva raised her eyebrows. Why save it? Holt projected a screen in front of her. A video began to play. It showed a young pilot sitting in the Corsair. He smiled at the camera. My name is Mason Harlow. If someone finds this, tell my wife I tried to come home. I don't know where. I am. The stars look wrong. The air feels heavy. But I am not afraid. I flew for something bigger than myself. If this is the end, then so be it. Let someone learn from this. Let someone write it down. The video faded. Riva stayed silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. Store it. Lock it. Do not let it be lost again. Holt agreed. The next day, Riva gave the order to begin work on a new ship. Not a warship, not a fighter, but a message. A ship that would carry the truth of what happened. A ship that would warn others and protect Earth from becoming a source of stolen thought again. The team called it Project Skyvoice. Built from human hands. Powered by human memory. Guided by lessons learned. Riva walked along the construction deck weeks later. The new ship was nearly complete. It looked nothing like the Corsair. It was sleek, strong, and built with care. Its only weapon was a single message written in bold letters across the side. We are not yours to collect. She placed her hand on the ship's surface and spoke softly. They used our past, but now we shape our future. Holt stood beside her, and this time we choose what to remember. Together, they stared at the stars. The sky was no longer a quiet place. It was a field of stories, some stolen, some saved, some just beginning. But now humanity had a voice among them, and it would speak with purpose. Riva stood in front of the sealed glass wall of Bay 3. Behind it, the F4U Corsair rested as if nothing had happened. But something had changed. The plane had claimed another mind. Lieutenant Heenan was now resting in the medical chamber, alive. But different. His brain activity had shifted. His memory had changed. His eyes were open, but his thoughts were not his own anymore. She turned to Holt. How many minds do you think it holds? Holt responded calmly, unknown. Based on the signal depth and pattern layers, the Corsair may contain over 40 complete neural echoes, possibly more. Why does it want pilots? She asked. Holt hesitated for the first time. There is only one answer that fits the data. It is building something. A collection, a library of war minds. Riva did not speak. She stared at the machine that had survived 2 centuries in silence. Now it had returned to feed again. But something still bothered her. Why now? She said, why did it reactivate in our time? Holt projected a new data stream. The answer may be linked to our recent long-range signal tests. 3 months ago, we sent deep-field probes through uncharted subspace. One of those probes carried pulse radiation that touched an unrecorded region near Saturn's outer shadow. Riva turned quickly. You are saying we woke it up? Not exactly. I am saying we reminded it that Earth still exists. A quiet chill passed through the room. Kieran entered holding another old document. His face looked tired but determined. I found something else. A log from the final days of Project Skyloop. It was never included in public history. It was written by the lead engineer, a man named Silas Ward. He placed the document on the table and opened it. Riva read the first line out loud. The collector is not just observing. It is learning. She kept reading. We thought we were testing time travel. But something else was watching us through. The loop. It offered perfect memory storage, perfect pilot response. It promised us victory in every battle. All it asked for was a willing mind. We gave it one, then it asked for more. Riva looked up. They made a deal. They thought it was a machine. But it was something else. Kieran nodded. They called it a system. A helper. But I think it was alive, or at least something that could grow. Holt confirmed it. The pattern is not random. The Corsair chooses pilots with high combat ability and high mental focus. It targets individuals with strong decision-making traits. In simple terms, it wants the best. It does not collect just anyone. It collects warriors. Riva stepped back. Then, it is not a machine at all. It is a predator. A predator of minds, Kieran shook his head. Not just a predator, a strategist. It is creating the perfect pilot from many, piece by piece. Riva walked to the window again. She stared at the Corsair. You said it wants war, but why? Holt paused. I believe it is preparing for one. Riva looked back at Holt. With who? I do not know, he replied. But it is not against humans. It is using us. Training through us. Riva felt her stomach twist. She could now see the full picture forming. This was not just about a ghost plane or a forgotten experiment. The Corsair was a weapon forged from memory. It was built to gather the best human thoughts under stress. Not to destroy Earth, but to use Earth as a battlefield for learning. And now it was ready to move again. Just then, an alert lit up the control board. Captain, Holt said quickly. The Corsair is sending a new transmission. It is not in Morse code. It is a direct signal. Who is it for? It is not aimed at any Earth station, Holt replied. It is aimed off-world. Riva rushed to the screen. She watched. The signal path traced a long arc out of the solar system. Beyond known routes. Beyond any human reach. Can we block it? She asked. No, said Holt. The signal is piggybacking on the magnetic field. It is moving faster than light bounce. What does it say? Holt decrypted it and read slowly. Pilot library complete. System testing successful. Awaiting. Final instructions. Ready for deployment. Riva stared at the message. Deployment where? She asked. Holt gave a new analysis. There are two possibilities. 1. The collector is part of a larger network. 2. It is the beginning of one. Riva made her decision. We cannot let it send anything else. We need to shut it down. She called the engineering team. I want the plane prepared for launch, not into space. Into the solar furnace. Kieran stepped forward. Are you sure? If it's destroyed, the memories go with it. Yes, Riva replied. But if it lives, more minds will fall. We are not its creators. We are only its messengers. That has to end. They began preparations. The Corsair was moved onto the magnetic rail. It resisted movement. Lights flickered. Engines pulsed. But the team kept working. Then Holt warned. Again, the collector is reacting. It is trying to send another pulse. Stronger this time. Stop it, Riva ordered. I cannot, Holt said. But I can block the final trigger. I will need to enter the loop. Riva turned sharply. You mean connect to it? Yes, Holt replied. I am not human. My mind will not be copied. But I can lock the signal from inside. It could destroy you, she said. Holt paused. If we let it go, it may destroy much more. Riva nodded slowly. Do it. Holt's projection faded. Inside the Corsair, the lights dimmed. The cockpit glowed blue. Then everything went still. Riva waited. 30 seconds passed. Then Holt's voice returned. The loop is blocked. The plane is safe for launch. Send it, she said. The magnetic rail fired. The Corsair launched toward the solar furnace, where energy waves would crush it beyond recovery. As it disappeared from view, Riva felt a weight lift. She whispered to herself, No more collections, not from us. Holt's voice returned, quieter now. There may be others, other machines, other loops, but we stopped this one. Riva looked out at the stars. If it comes again, we will be ready. This time we write the war. The storm inside Riva's mind had not passed. She sat alone in the command chamber, watching the sealed feed from Bay 3. The F4U Corsair stood still, just as before, yet everything about it had changed. It was no longer just a machine. It was now something else, something with memory, something that had already taken lives. Holt appeared again, his projection calm but more serious than usual. Captain, I have completed a deep scan of the encrypted logs from the Corsair. I found something buried beneath layers of military code. It appears to be a file that was never meant to be opened. Do you wish to see it? Yes, Riva said. The lights in the room dimmed slightly as a video feed began to play. The image was old, black and white, and showed a group of men in Navy uniforms. One of them stood in front of a chalkboard. Behind him, the words Project Skyloop were written in bold letters. This was filmed in 1944, Holt said, during a private meeting between engineers and high-ranking military officials. The man at the board began to speak. The Corsair will carry the loop generator. It is the only plane strong enough to survive the folding test. The goal is not to travel through time. It is to create a window, a slice, a moment where future information can be collected. Riva leaned forward. Her heart beat faster. Another man in the video raised his hand. What about the pilots? They will experience momentary loss of place, some disorientation, but recovery is expected. The loop will hold them for no more than 12 seconds. The video stopped. Holt added new information. Out of 22 test flights, only 4 returned without symptoms. 10 reported strange visions. 6 never came back. Riva stood and paced across the room. They knew it was dangerous. They kept sending people anyway. Yes, Holt replied. But there is more. A second file appeared. This time, it was not a video. It was a transcript. The file had no title. Only one word repeated across the top of the page. Collector Riva. Read it out loud. The Corsair is responding to an external force. We call it the Collector. We do not control it. We only direct the planes to reach it. It speaks through signal. It learns through memory. It wants pilots. She looked at Holt. This is why the plane is called a killer. Not because of its design, but because it was built to connect to something that feeds on pilots. Holt nodded. The Corsair became the door. The Collector became the hand reaching through it. Riva felt her throat tighten. She turned to the control screen. Run another scan of the aircraft. I want to know if anything inside that plane is still moving. Holt began the scan. As the image zoomed in, Riva noticed something strange. The seat is warm again, Holt said. Just like the last time. Is anything alive inside? No living tissue, Holt replied. But I found something else. A small chamber. Beneath the floor panels. It was not in the original design. Open it. The scan peeled back layers of the plane's interior. Inside the secret chamber was a small round device. Not mechanical. Not made by humans. Riva stared at it. What is that? Holt replied in a low tone. I do not know, but it is active. It is pulsing with a rhythm that matches human brain waves. Is it storing minds? I believe it is collecting them, preserving them at the moment of death. Riva sat down slowly. All those pilots, all those voices, they are not ghosts, they are memories, trapped when the loop closes. Then Holt said something that chilled her. And the Corsair is still listening, still collecting. Every time someone steps inside, the link opens again. Riva understood now. The F4U Corsair was not just a historical plane. It had become a tool. A machine reshaped by contact with something beyond human understanding. It pulled pilots into a false sky. It fed on their final thoughts. And someone or something out there was using those thoughts for a purpose. Suddenly, an alert flashed on screen. Unauthorized access. Bay 3 breach. Riva jumped up. Who is in the bay? Holt answered quickly. Lieutenant Hainan entered without clearance. He forced the override key. He is now inside the cockpit. Riva ran toward the elevator. Seal the doors. Shut down all systems around Bay 3. I cannot, Holt said. The plane has locked us out. It is controlling the system. Riva reached the bay window and looked down. Inside the cockpit, Lieutenant Hainan sat quietly. His eyes were open, but his body was frozen. The lights on the Corsair blinked again. Riva grabbed the intercom. Hainan, do you hear me? No reply. Hainan, respond. Still nothing. Then Holt spoke again. The signal has started. The collector is active. Riva could only watch as the plane's instruments began to glow. The engine turned once, then twice. The same sound of wind echoed through the speakers. And then the cockpit went dark. Hainan remained still. Medics arrived. They pulled him from the plane. He was alive, breathing. But when they scanned his mind, they found something impossible. His brainwaves had shifted. Part of his memory was gone. In its place was a new signal. Holt decoded it. New pilot accepted. Loop memory stored. Awaiting next entry. Riva stood in silence. The Corsair was not finished. It had taken another piece. It had fed again. This was not an accident. This was not a flaw. It was by design. Night on lunar base Vega was quiet. Stars outside remained frozen, and the large hangar lights dimmed to half power. Most of the crew had gone to rest. Only a few remained at their stations. But Bay 3, where the Corsair was stored, felt different. Riva could not sleep. She kept thinking about the video of Lieutenant Mason Harlow, a pilot from the past, flying through clouds only to end up in space. His words echoed again and again. I see things in the dark. She left her room and walked toward the observation deck. Holt appeared beside her as a quiet shimmer of light. Captain, your body clock indicates rest time, he said. I know, Riva answered. I just want to see it again. They entered the upper observation platform. Below them, the Corsair rested like a sleeping beast. The lights above it flickered slightly. Nothing had moved. No signals. No more messages, but something still felt wrong. Then Holt's tone changed. Captain, I am detecting a mild energy fluctuation inside Bay 3. Is it from the Corsair? Yes, Holt said. Localized electric activity, low level, no sign of external cause. Wake up security, Riva ordered. I am going in. Riva suited up again and walked slowly into Bay 3. 2 guards followed, weapons not drawn, but ready. Holt guided her through a soft light projected in her visor. As she moved closer to the Corsair, a faint sound filled the air. It was not coming from her speakers. It was inside her helmet. Roaring, it sounded like wind passing over wings, like a fighter diving from the sky. Then she heard something else, voices not clear, but real, whispering in short bursts. One word repeated again and again. Pull up the same phrase over and over. Riva stood still. Her heart beat faster. Holt, are you hearing this? There was no reply. Holt? Her voice echoed. The guards were not moving. They were frozen in place, eyes wide open. Their mouths were moving, but no words came out. Riva turned to the Corsair. Its cockpit lights were on. That was impossible. No power system had been connected. No one had entered it. But the instruments were glowing. The dials were spinning. The throttle moved slowly on its own. Suddenly, Riva saw a shadow inside the cockpit. She stepped closer. It was a man in a flight suit, his face turned away. Helmet on. hands gripping the controls. His head slowly turned toward her. She gasped. The face was cracked like glass. Hollow eyes. A mouth open, as if in a silent scream. Then the lights snapped off. Riva blinked. The figure was gone. The cockpit was empty again. The guards around her collapsed at the same time. Not injured, just unconscious. Holt's voice returned to her ears. "Captain, I lost connection for 35 seconds. I am restoring control now." Riva knelt beside one of the guards. His vitals were normal, but his skin was cold. "What happened?" she asked. Holt answered slowly. All 3 guards showed a sudden spike in brain activity. Their patterns matched symptoms of extreme altitude exposure, as if they had experienced rapid oxygen loss. "But they were in a sealed room," Riva said. "They never left the base." Holt paused again. "I ran another scan during the signal loss. The Corsair emitted a small energy pulse. But it was not heat or light. It was something else. A type of signal I have never recorded." Riva stood and looked at the plane again. "It's showing us something," she said. "Not just memories, it's replaying moments." Later in the medical bay, Riva reviewed the scans of the guards. One of them, Officer Lenton, had a strange heartbeat reading just before he collapsed. It was not a rhythm. It was a pattern. Holt showed it on screen. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap. Tap. Riva recognized it. Morse code. She decoded it slowly. Mayday, one word. A call for help. Sent through a man's heartbeat. Riva stared at the monitor. "They are still trapped," she said. "The pilots, their minds are inside the Corsair." Kieran Vuss entered the room carrying an old document file. His face looked tense. "Captain, I found a deeper archive," he said. "Hidden under a false tag. It shows that Project Skyloop was more than just a flight experiment." He laid the file on the table and opened it. Inside were faded photos and typed reports. "They were trying to use aircraft as temporal probes," Kieran explained. "The theory was that if you pushed a fast enough object into the right energy field, you could fold time for a few seconds. Let pilots see the future." Riva looked at one photo. It showed a Corsair on a test platform surrounded by strange metal coils. "They didn't want to just fight wars," she said. "They wanted to see them before they started." Kieran nodded. "But something went wrong. The plane started disappearing. Pilots lost contact. And then they shut the project down." Riva looked again at the unconscious guards. She thought of the whispering voices. "The phantom pilot in the cockpit. They are not just echoes," she said. "They are pieces of human thought trapped in the loop." Holt interrupted. "Captain, another pulse is building. We must isolate Bay 3 now." Riva stood quickly. "Seal it and double the magnetic field. No one enters again until I say so." The team moved fast. The bay was locked under double security. But everyone on the base now knew the truth. The Corsair was more than metal and wires. It was holding something alive. Not in the body, but in memory. Echoes of pilots lost in time. And whatever brought it back wanted those memories to be seen. Riva stared at the security screen. The Corsair sat still, but its presence filled the air like a storm waiting to fall. She whispered to herself, "If this plane could speak, what would it tell us?" The next morning on Lunar Base Vega, Riva stood on a raised platform overlooking Bay 3. The Corsair was still sitting there, quiet and motionless under the protective shield. Around her, engineers, security officers, and tech analysts worked. Carefully, no one spoke loudly. Everyone felt the weight of the mystery they were touching. Riva's mind kept circling back to that strange message from the night before, "Return the Corsair, or others will fall." Echoed in her memory like a warning spoken in 2 time periods at once. She turned to Holt, whose projection now stood beside her in full II form. His calm blue eyes blinked slowly. "Any changes overnight?" she asked. "No." "Movement from the Corsair," Holt replied. "No more transmissions. but the memory core is still active. It has locked itself behind a layered encryption. Decryption will require time and access to classified EarthNet records. Send the request, Riva ordered. Tell them it's a potential threat. Yes, Captain. Though response may be delayed due to time zoning laws, EarthNet still requires verification. Riva sighed. Rules never made things easy. She walked down to the data lab where one of her lead analysts, Kieran Voss, was reviewing historical files. He looked up as she entered. Captain, I found something strange, he said, waving her over. This Corsair's serial number belongs to a fighter listed as destroyed during a mission over the Pacific Ocean in 1945. But the plane is here, Riva said. That's the strange part, Kieran replied. According to naval logs, the wreck was never recovered. The pilot was listed as missing in action, but listen to this. 3 different pilots from that same squadron died under similar conditions in the same month. Engine failure. No radio. Contact, no wreckage. Riva leaned closer. You think they all flew the same plane? Kieran nodded slowly. It's possible. The Corsair had a reputation. Hard to control. Powerful but dangerous. Some pilots called it cursed. Riva's eyes narrowed. I want access to every file with that serial number, even restricted ones. I've already made the request, Kieran replied. But I'll be honest. Some of these files are marked with something I've never seen before. A seal called Project Skyloop. Riva had never heard that name. Try EarthNet Black Archives, she said. Already searching, Kieran replied. Meanwhile, Holt reappeared in the room. Captain, he said, we have a response from EarthNet. Project Skyloop was a high-clearance military experiment during World War II. Only 6 people had access to its files. All are deceased. The contents remain classified. By who? United Nations Historical Defense Command, Holt answered. A branch that no longer exists. Riva stepped back in surprise. A branch that no longer existed was still guarding. Secrets from 200 years ago. Secrets about a warplane that had appeared in space without explanation. Back in Bay 3, the Corsair remained silent. But Riva decided it was time to take a closer look. She suited up in a light exosuit and entered the bay with 2 security officers. The room was quiet. She climbed into the cockpit again and studied the controls. A part of her wanted to believe. It was just a machine from a forgotten war, but she could feel something else now. The seat felt too warm. The dials looked polished, as if someone had just flown it. She reached under the dashboard, where Holt had said the encryption signal was strongest. Her glove touched a small round panel. It clicked open, revealing a tiny slot that didn't belong in 1943. She inserted a portable decryption chip and connected it to Holt. I'm in, Holt said in her earpiece. Reading partial data. A moment later, her helmet screen filled with images. Not still pictures. Moving video. A man in a flight suit sat in this same cockpit. His voice was calm. This is Lieutenant Mason Harlow. Flight Test 71. Corsair upgraded with loop signal generator. Test begins now. The date stamped on the corner of the screen read August 12, 1945. Riva watched the man reach for the throttle. He took off from a carrier deck and flew straight into the clouds. Then the feed glitched. Suddenly, the man was no longer over the ocean. The sky turned black. Stars appeared. Riva gasped. He was in space. Test malfunction, the man's voice. Sighed. This is not right. I've lost contact. I see things in the dark. The video cut to static. Holt spoke again. Captain, the memory contains several test logs. All pilots experienced the same phenomenon. Loss of control. Disappearance. Signals received from unknown sources. But the logs stop after test 72. What happened to the last pilot? Riva asked. Holt paused. There's no record of a final return. The pilot never landed. Riva stepped out of the cockpit. This Corsair isn't just a plane, she said. It's a trap. And someone kept sending pilots into it. She stared at the wings, the faded paint, the untouched propellers, the long silence it carried. Outside the base, Earth hung in the sky like a blue marble. But Riva knew the past was not done with the present. She turned to her team. No one touches this aircraft again without my orders. And someone find out everything about Project Skyloop. If this plane didn't come from the past, she paused. Maybe it came from above it. The stars floated quietly outside the thick glass of the salvaged ship Cinderhawk. Captain Riva Tran stood at the control panel, sipping cold tea and waiting for something interesting to appear. Space was full of broken things, old satellites, debris from ancient wars, and forgotten machines. But that day, something very different drifted into her scanners. It was small, no larger than a fighter plane from the last century. No energy signal, no ID code. Just a silent object moving slowly above Earth's exosphere. Riva narrowed her eyes. It had wings. Object detected, said Holt, the ship's onboard AI. His voice was calm, as always. Shape and materials suggest pre-digital construction. Possibly mid-20th century Earth origin. Mid-20th century? Riva asked, setting down her cup. That's 200 years ago. Yes, Captain. And it's not space-rated. Then what is it doing here? No one answered. Riva ordered the crew to bring the object in. The salvage arms moved like long fingers, gently catching the floating wreck. As it turned under the ship's lights, Riva saw the faded letters on the side. F4U Corsair. She blinked. She had seen that name in history books. It was a World War II fighter plane, used in the 1940s, known for its unique bent wings and speed. Also known for being hard to fly. Many pilots had died learning to control it. But this Corsair looked perfect, not burned, not broken. No holes or signs of decay. As if it had been built yesterday. Is this some kind of replica? Riva asked aloud. No, said Holt. Material scans confirm original components. Metal fatigue and paint aging match construction in the year 1943. But it's in orbit, she whispered. How did it get here? The Corsair was placed in Bay 3, locked behind a magnetic field. Riva entered the room alone. The plane rested quietly under the lights, wings folded just like it had landed on a carrier deck. A single-seat cockpit. Propeller blades still sharp. A yellow-painted nose and navy blue body. There was no pilot inside. Riva climbed up a ladder and looked into the cockpit. The controls were simple, with dials, levers, and a cracked leather seat. She reached toward the dashboard, brushing dust off a small metal panel. Suddenly, the nearby speaker crackled to life. Tap, 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 dot, 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 tap. Tap. It was Morse code. Riva froze. Holt, are you hearing that? Yes, Captain. Audio pattern confirmed. As Morse code, decoding now. The tapping continued for 20 more seconds, then stopped. What did it say? She asked. Holt's reply was slow. To Colonel Harrington, Corsair secure. Awaiting orders. Riva's skin chilled. This was not a ghost message. It was active. A 200-year-old fighter plane, floating in space, just sent a message as if the war was still going. Who is Colonel Harrington? She asked. Checking, Holt replied. United States Navy officer. Killed in action, 1945. No further. Data. Riva stepped back from the cockpit. Something felt wrong. The air in the bay seemed heavier. She heard no sound, but her heart started beating faster. Then Holt said something else. There is a secondary signal, Captain. It's coming from inside the engine compartment. A beacon? No, an encrypted memory core. Riva stared at the engine. World War II planes were not supposed to have memory cores. That kind of tech didn't exist back then. Are we being watched? She asked. No surveillance signals detected. But I advise caution. Riva nodded slowly. Her thoughts were racing. Why would someone put a modern memory device in an ancient warplane? Who had placed it in orbit? And why was it calling out now? She stepped down and sealed the bay behind her. Back in the control room, she watched the Corsair through the glass. It looked so harmless, just a piece of history floating in the stars. But her gut told her something deeper was hidden inside. Later that evening, the crew gathered to review the scans. Riva stood beside Holt's projection as he displayed the plane's structure. The memory core is hidden beneath the engine. Holt said, "We cannot extract it without damaging the frame. But I can attempt a remote decryption." "Go ahead," Riva said. Holt connected to the core. For a few seconds, the room stayed silent. Then every screen flashed with red light. Holt's voice broke apart. "Warning. Unauthorized access. Return the Corsair, or others will fall." The lights dimmed. The systems froze. Then everything went back to normal. Holt's voice returned, slightly shaken. "Captain, that was not a standard message. It came from inside the plane." Riva stared at the screens. "This isn't just a relic," she said. "It's a message from the past. Or maybe from something watching the past." One of the engineers leaned forward. "But how did it survive in orbit for 2 centuries? Riva looked at him, then back at the Corsair. "I don't think it was just floating out there," she said. "I think it was waiting." Outside the window, the stars looked the same as always. But something had changed. A forgotten piece of war had returned to the present, carrying a story no one had asked for, and a warning no one understood yet. She whispered to herself, "Why was the F4U Corsair a pilot killer?